Right now is when the Radiohead "No Surprises, Please" needs to be playing.
Oh my
you
gosh.
know,
This is a
letting you
shit show that
surprise
just keeps
us.
rolling.
Letting you surprise us is how we got that god awful song last week.
Jamming on the one. All right, guys. Welcome back to another episode of the UNT3. I'm your host, Ryan Gerfers, here with co-host Christian Fisher
What's up,
and
guys?
Joel Cox. What we do here, guys, we are a music podcast, and we do all music all the time. We go anywhere from talking about albums to songs to our favorite concerts, our first concerts. Anything. The sky's the limit with what we do with our conversation. We're three best friends that when we get together, all we do is talk about music. And we want to bring you into that conversation. And so we'll dive right in today. All right. And so what we'll do is we're going to move straight into what we've been talking about for a couple episodes now. And what we're going to do is we're going to start putting together our supergroup this week. And the supergroup, the way we're thinking about this is we're going to be discussing each member of this group. And we're going to start this week with the drummer. That's who we're going to pick. We're going to discuss several different drummers and why we feel they would make the best drummer for our supergroup. We're not necessarily saying that this drummer is the greatest drummer of all time. That is a very subjective statement, but we kind of have a method to the madness here to do this and how we're going to pick this drummer. We're also, in future episodes, we're going to pick a bass player. We're going to look at a rhythm guitar player, a lead guitar player. We're throwing around the idea of maybe throwing a keyboard player in there, and
John Lord. That's all.
and then also you can't have.
This is right. Come on.
You can't have a super group without a front man, and so we will end our super group with the front man, and that'll be future episodes. We will not do more than one band member in a single episode. So we're going to focus episodes strictly one band member at a time. This episode, we're going drummers. And so really, without further ado, we'll just jump right in. I did some research, and I think I put together a pretty darn good drummer list here, if I might say so myself.
Okay.
You know?
Okay. I'm excited. You have pulled it out recently. Your last episode with Pyramid Song and some. I mean, you've done really great. So hey, I'm kind of excited to see what you pull out now.
I kind of learned from the best. And, I mean, just got to give,
thank you. I
got to give my wife props. My wife has really helped me out on this,
He doesn't want to sleep on the couch tonight.
But
Smart move. Hey, you got a new one, though, so got a nice comfy new one downstairs.
I thought you had a new wife.
No, I was like, I did. Wow, send her over. But no, I got 3 comfy new couches. They're amazing. And when you guys come back over, you've all got a new place to sleep.
Right instead of the bed that I normally sleep. But thank you.
I know, right?
Okay.
All right. So before I name off my list here, I'm going to kind of throw it over to you guys real quick and see if you came up with any names. I'm sure whoever you guys picked, I'm almost guaranteeing they're going to be on the list that I put together, but let's just compare notes and see how this goes.
All right. So I guess I'll throw mine out first. My first one I'm going to throw out there is Dave Grohl. I think you laugh, but let's talk about the amount of people he's played with. He played in Nirvana. He filled in for Avenged Sevenfold when the Rev passed away, right?
I didn't know that.
No, that was Mike Portnoy. I'm sorry, wrong guy.
Yeah.
But he did play in Queens of the Stone Age.
Yeah.
And
he did fill in for Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers. They tried to hire him.
Right before Foo Fighters started, yeah.
Yeah.
And the Sound City documentary, just bringing in all those musicians and jamming with them. So I think as far as just the ability to sit behind a kit and kind of form that instant chemistry that you need with the supergroup, I think he's a good candidate due to the amount of people that he's played with.
Mm-hmm.
My second guy, he's the heaviest hitter of them all, John Bonham. You know, I don't know what else to say other than when people think greatest rock drummer of all time, his name usually is either near the top or the top of the list. And just as I think these guys are, I guess, two sides of the same coin, maybe. My third guy is Neil Peart. Talk about another heavy hitter. He's just, I think of the three guys that I just named, I think he's my favorite of the three.
Why is that?
His inventiveness behind the kit, I think, just a guy like he starts out, he starts out with the Fly By Night album, right? That's where he starts with Rush. And they go on, I think it was around the Moving Pictures era where he decided, you know what, I'm going to go and I'm going to study and I'm going to completely redo how I play the drums. And for a while there, he was playing is it traditional where you hold the stick kind of like this?
Yeah,
So, I mean, just the willingness to say, people regard me as the best drummer in the world, but I'm not where I want to be. So I'm going to take time out and go learn and completely redo my mechanics, completely redo how my approach to the drums. I just think, and it sounds like if you watch the documentary Beyond the Lighted Stage, Getty and Alex talk about it was Neil that we were playing with, and it sounded like Neil, but the feel that we were playing with was completely different.
Yeah.
Right? He was playing the same fills and he was playing the same parts, but the feel of the music was different. And so that's why he made my list.
Oh man, that's a great choice. And speaking of Neil Peart, or however you say it, we're from Texas. We say Peart. I read a story a long time ago where he kind of got a little disenchanted, if that's even mentally where he was at. But he basically flew to either South America or Africa and had no plan. He just got off the plane and then just walked and ended up in this village and soaked up their rhythms and their way of life. And anybody who has done any type of research on African music, I mean, a lot of it is rhythmic. Rap is a very clear example of that. But he learned this communication. It wasn't just him playing music. It was him communicating. And he came back, and that's probably part of what you're talking about as far as him learning to kind of play differently than he did before, even though it did sound just like him. So I think that's a great choice. Okay, so I laugh because my first choice is Dave Grohl. Yeah. And I mean, what I tried to base it off of is I wanted people that, even if you're not a musician, if I go up to Ryan and I say, hey, do you know who Dave Grohl is? He knows who Dave Grohl is, and we've kind of joked in the past that his musical knowledge is better. But back in the day, if you said, hey, do you know this guy? And Ryan knew who that was, unless it was Bone Thugs and Harmony or Warren G or something like that. or the Beach Boys, based off of other episodes. You knew if you said those names and he recognized it, that's a big person. Dave Grohl is one of those guys. Plus, he's a super chill guy. I mean, I assume that he just is friends with everybody, and he just loves music for the sake of music. Like, he can
Right.
sing, he can play, he can write, he can play drums, and I think he's also a role player because, he goes to Queens of the Stone Age and he plays totally different than he does in Nirvana, and totally different than he does when he originally was playing in Foo Fighters, because he originally played the first 2 Foo Fighters albums before Taylor Hawkins was brought in. So, I mean, I think he knows his role, and so if he goes in and plays for like Tom Petty, he's gonna play, like Tom Petty, or what Tom Petty needs.
Right.
So that's what I think is super important.
So what you're saying is he serves the song.
Yeah, or he serves the artist. Like, he understands, like, hey, Tom Petty doesn't play like Nirvana and Foo Fighters and Queens of the Stone Age, so I'm just going to do what they do and base it off of that, because the drumming off of the stuff he did with Queens is phenomenal. And if you listen, it's not as grungy and loose as Nirvana or even the early Foo Fighter stuff. So that's kind of like my number one. That is my number one. Number 2, John Bonham. So, I mean, we're locked in there. I mean, Zeppelin, he can play jazz, he can play straight. His sounds are just so large. And also the fact that, I mean, he was crazy. Like, he was insane, like, in a good way. Like, if you were going to party, you want to party with John Bonham. Of course,
Right.
It died young, so maybe that's not a...
Hey.
Watch out, you young kids out there. Don't party too hard. But, he's a phenomenal drummer, phenomenal musician, and just no one else like him. Going along the same lines as someone who is pretty well known, Neil Peart is like a perfect. That is a great. I mean, but I was trying to think of somebody. The problem that I had with Neil is he didn't like to play the same rhythm twice. Like, he liked to have a song that had a spice every time he was doing something. And if you watch the documentary, I think it's Geddy Lee that says that they had to convince, every time that they wanted to repeat something over a period in a song, they had to convince him of why that was important. That doesn't take away from what he does. With Rush, it works. But I think as a super group, that's one of the things that did kind of concern me. So what I chose Mike Portnoy, which is funny because you mentioned him on accident.
Yeah.
But I chose him from Dream Theater just because, one, he's played with so many different people. He filled in for the Rev. He filled in for Dream Theater. He's filled in with all these people. He
started Dream Theater.
Well, he started Dream Theater. I assume he went to Berkeley as well, since all the other guys seem to be from Berkeley. Except for, I don't think the lead singer, the current, he's been a singer for a while. But he also does a lot of things for the rock community. Like, he loves putting on shows where he brings musicians together. Musicians are just willing to play with him. He seems like a super easy guy, unless you're in Dream Theater or Avenged Sevenfold, I guess, because they didn't keep him. But
he left Dream Theater. He
left Dream
got kicked
Theater.
out.
Well, yeah, I know, but I think he went to. I thought he tried to get back in. I could be wrong. So if that's
he's never tried to get back in.
Originally
he didn't want to leave. He just wanted to take time off.
Well, and I know with Avenged Sevenfold, he wanted to be the drummer for them, and they were like, "We want to give somebody else a shot."
Yeah.
But either way, I mean, he's a phenomenal drummer. Everything that I've seen, he's a super cool guy. He tries to put people together. He gets all these different groups of people together to do shows. And he's got kind of a semi super group on the side, which isn't as well known as probably the super group we're going to put together, because ours goes over generations. But I think with him, he's just, those are the criteria. Well-known, well-versed musicians, and seem like they're pretty chill guys that they can get along with anybody. So that's my 3 choices.
Real quick side note concerning Mike Portnoy. One of his many bands that he's a part of right now, the Flying Colors, their lead singer, Casey McPherson, grew up with Casey. Went to school with Casey. Yeah.
So like if
Casey,
we saw him, he'd know who you are and stuff, and be like, "What's up?"
it might take him a little bit of time to remember who I was, but yeah, like we used to. I can't remember the name of I can't remember what it was called, but it was kind of like fifth quarter on Friday nights after the football game. We'd all meet up, like all the Christian kids would meet up after the football game, and just he was the praise band leader, and he would lead the praise band, and it was just a place to get together and hang out.
Cool.
And so, Casey and I spent a lot of time uh, getting to know each other and just hanging out there. So yeah,
Sweet. Small world.
small world indeed.
Yeah.
All right, so tell us about this list.
All right.
Yeah.
So,
Numbers guy.
everybody you named is on my list. I'm not going to be naive to think that the first few names that are on there are actually going to be picked for the supergroup, but I'm going to mention them. One, out of respect for the listeners that enjoy these bands or this style of music, but two, they have made an impact possibly in their genre that they at least warrant a mention
Yeah.
for consideration.
Yes. Like Meg White.
And so I don't know
mean,
what that means, but okay.
She's the drummer for White Stripes.
Okay. Well, since we're talking women, right, let's go with the first one here. And I actually work with a guy who, when I showed him my list, he was like, why isn't this person on there? Go check her out. She can actually wail on the drums. And it's Karen Carpenter of the Carpenters. The chick can play. He wasn't lying, right? So she knows what she's doing behind a drum kit. But I don't, she's not going to be in our super group. But for those of you listening, if you didn't know that Karen Carpenter could play the drums, go check it out.
Because she can play the drums. She just can't eat a sandwich.
The chick can play
That's
drums.
not right. That's not right at all.
Hey, but it's true. But anyway,
Right.
so the next one, and these are in no particular order. Okay,
And our YouTube channel gets shut down right there.
I don't have a 1, 2, 3 list. I mean, this is so.
Yeah, just go down the list. This is fun.
The next person here, the drummer from Slipknot, Joey Jordison.
Oh yeah.
Right.
Amazing.
And so, right, he kind of really for metal music, kind of, I don't want to say was revolutionary, but man, he's up there for metal. And if we got any metalheads out there, I think they would definitely say, yeah, you're hitting one with Joey.
Yeah,
so,
and his other project is really good as well, and I can't remember what the name of it is, but it's really good too.
I've not heard him play any other style of music. That's why I wouldn't include him.
Mm-hmm.
We're not putting together a metal supergroup. We're just putting together a supergroup.
Sure. I mean, then you've got guys like Travis Barker from Blink-182. You've got, Danny Carey from Tool.
Oh, that's a good one.
I mean, and then of course, y'all both mentioned Dave Grohl. I know he's at the top of y'all's list. I think with some of the other names I'll mention here in a little bit, I don't know that there's a Dave Grohl without these other guys. I mean, that's just another avenue that you look at, but I'm not
to kind of go back to Danny, because I don't want to skip over Danny, because a lot of Tool fans out there will yell at us if we just,
we just blow by him.
If we just blow by Danny. I mean, Danny is I would say Danny's an extension of Neil.
Mm-hmm.
Right. You can say the same thing about Mike Portnoy too. Like if a quote unquote family tree, you've got Neil at the top, and then all the branches kind of, or the roots, if you will, kind of just spread out from there. And Mike and Danny and some other drummers that we'll probably talk about kind of are connected in that fashion. But Danny is just, I mean, what do you say about a guy who's like, okay, I'm gonna drum to a mathematical formula? Like, that's what he does.
Yeah.
And I don't think, and if I remember correctly from the interview that I saw, like, he didn't do it on purpose, but that's how he thinks. And his technicality is second to none. and I mean, I listened to him play and just like, how the hell does he have 4 arms, right?
Mhm.
He's just, I don't want to, like I said, I don't want to blow past him and not give him his due, because
Sure.
I think of all the people that we've named so far, Danny kind of separates himself from that list.
Yeah, and I think
And
it's hard to think of Danny Carey outside of Tool. You know
right,
what I mean? Like,
right,
and that's not it's not a diss. Like when we think of like the Beatles, like we talked about earlier, like it's easy to think of the Beatles together, and then it's easy to think of Paul, George, Ringo, and John outside, because what they did was able to transcend outside. And not that say Danny Carey can't, but I think the thing with with him is that what he does fits so well in Tool, and not to knock the other members in Tool, because Maynard and the rest of the guys are so great, but it's hard to think of Tool without Danny Carey. Like without that, they actually replaced their bass player, and a lot of people don't know that, but they didn't really skip a beat with that. I think you try to replace Danny Carey and Tool, and it just doesn't work.
well, I mean,
And
to be fair, they replaced their bass player pretty early on.
they did, but
Justin's been with them for a while.
and he's great. I'm not saying
Yeah.
he's not, but I'm just saying I think that with Danny Carey, it's like Tool is his vehicle.
Right.
And I think and maybe I'm wrong, but I think if you put him in another scenario, I'm not sure. He's just so, like you said, like, you have Neil and then you have Danny that's like over here on the side. It's just hard to kind of picture him doing anything else. Whereas like with Neil played, he did the tribute to Buddy Rich several years ago, and killed it. Like he did such a great job at that. So, I mean, he could do the jazz stuff. I mean, some jazz guys are probably like, that's not true. But like Danny Carey, I just think that Danny Carey has kind of developed his sound and what he does so much. Putting him in another vehicle, I just don't know if it would work. Not that he's not a great drummer. I just think that that's just his vehicle where he can,
Right.
That's his canvas.
Yeah.
Put him on another canvas, I just don't know if it would work. But
No,
that's a great drumming choice.
I would agree with that. I think, again, I know I have a lot of friends who are Tool fanatics, if you will, and if
You
we
have
just
friends?
shut your face. If we just in passing mention Danny Carey, they'd be like, "Why didn't you go back?"
Yeah,
So
that's
I
true.
wanted to give him his due. All right.
That's true.
No, sure. And so we'll continue with
And
some
they'll
more
still probably yell at me because they're like, he didn't make your list. And, so.
But he made mine.
Your list of 20 drummers.
And so we'll continue going. And I don't want this to come off wrong. These drummers that I'm listing right now, I don't want them to be considered, B-rated, drummers. There's just a lot of really good drummers. So this next little group that I'm going to name off, I'm not really considering as whales of drumming, but they're definitely worth a mention. And then after this group, I'll get into there's 7 of them here at the top that are the whales that I think actually might be considered for the supergroup. Even though both of you have picked one that I've already gone past with Dave Grohl. I don't think we need to go into him anymore. Y'all have said everything you need to say. But really, some more names. Stuart Copeland from the Police. You've got Phil Collins. A lot of people know who Phil Collins is.
That's true.
Genesis.
He's a great drummer.
You've got Ringo Starr. I mean, the Beatles, supergroup. Now, is he if we're going off of just name recognition alone, then you've got to put him in there because he was with the Beatles. But
look, this is what I'll say as far as Ringo is concerned. If you have not seen the little intro video that was put together and played before he was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, I think in 2017, somewhere around there. Go watch it because you have the likes of Dave Grohl and Stuart Copeland and Taylor Hawkins and the guy who's currently the drummer for Paul McCartney and his
Oh yeah.
band. And some other guys like I can't think of his name right off the top of my head, but he was the drummer for the Traveling Wilburys.
Oh yeah, Jim Kreitler or something like that.
They all they were interviewed for this little intro video, and they all talk about the influence of Ringo and just the importance of Ringo. What I will also say is I will mention the little jab that Paul McCartney took at him when way back in the 60s when they were asked if Ringo was the best drummer in the world, and Paul said he's not even the best drummer in the Beatles. So
that is true. That is true. And you know, with Ringo, the problem that I have with Ringo is he's great, and no one can take away. I actually saw Greg Bissonette do a clinic at North Texas years ago, and he basically played in front of this 300 or 400 seat auditorium all these different Beatles songs where he played just like Ringo, and it was great. But the last couple times, like over the last 5 to 7 years, every time I see Ringo, he's not really playing the drums. So I know at time, I mean, we take them from where they're at, but I love Ringo. I love the Beatles, but I don't think he makes this list. I think he inspires the people on this list, but I wouldn't put him on.
Sure. And again, like I'm not naive to think that he's actually going to make our super group, but again, name recognition alone, I think at least gives him a mention.
Well, he's already played it. He's already played in one super group. So.
And so, I mean, two more guys before we get to the Whales is, Jeff Porcaro from Toto and Steely Dan.
Ooh, man.
Come on.
Jeff Porcaro.
And then you've got
cocaine is hell of a drug.
Then you've got Dave Lombardo from Slayer, the Misfits.
Again, I would put him in the same category as Joey Jordison.
Mm.
Yeah.
I know Dave's background is jazz. Like that's what he was schooled on as an early child and growing up. And if I'm not mistaken, he is actually right now in a jazz group, but I've not heard it, so I can't speak to what his playing sounds like. I can only go off of him playing in Slayer. So again, if we're talking about a metal super group, he's right up there.
Yeah,
sure.
I agree. And I had the pleasure of seeing him play once. I actually got to see the original lineup of Slayer.
Woo,
and I will tell you this, it's one of the few concerts that after they were done playing, I felt like I'd been pummeled. It was so intense. I felt like I'd been just slowly punched over the entire concert, which isn't bad. It's just, and he was fantastic. But I agree with Fisher. Like, he's a great drummer. Maybe that's a future podcast.
Sure.
If you'd like to see a metal podcast, going ahead and put it in the comments below. But
too much metal.
We'd love to do that. But I do agree. I don't think necessarily for a super group overall.
Sure.
That would be. But man, he's watch that. If you can find the live version where they play Rain and Blood, and then at the end they have the blood pouring while they're playing. It's crazy.
So we'll move into now what I'm calling the Whales, the ones that I think might actually have a chance at making the group.
Okay.
And this, again, no particular order. So we'll start off with Bill Bruford from Yes.
It's great. Great drummer.
I think, he deserves at least a mention and consideration. He is in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. So I think if you get into the Hall of Fame, you at least have to be considered.
Yeah, and I'm of a rare group that prefers Alan White over Bill for Yes. So
Controversy.
It's actually funny you said that. Hang on, sorry. It's funny you said that because I accidentally skipped over Alan White earlier. His name is right next to Danny Carey. And so Danny Carey, that little talk we had of Danny Carey made me accidentally skip over Alan White. So Alan White was on this list as well. Another drummer we've already talked about that's in my Wales is Mike Portnoy of Dream Theater. And the one thing I found about Mike that's interesting is aside from a few music theory classes, he's completely self-taught.
Oh.
And so, I mean, to do what he's done, to start up and play in as many bands that he has, having been self-taught, only taking music theory, I mean, that's pretty insane to me.
Yeah, well, and he's also in a with Dream Theater, they were a progressive metal band. So it's not just, hey, play some, we're going to play some straight grooves. I mean, they're all over the place.
And here's the thing, a little note for you listening out there. If you don't know who Mike Portnoy is, and I didn't until I went and saw Dream Theater with Joel at a concert. They opened up for Iron Maiden.
That's right.
That was a great show, by the way.
That was a great show.
Look up Mike Portnoy and just put in Mike Portnoy Glass Prison and watch that video. It is amazing. Yeah. So I don't think we have to talk anymore about Mike. We've kind of covered him. The next one would be Keith Moon from The Who.
Okay. That's a good one.
I mean, I think he's up there,
Talk about cocaine's hell of a drug.
Now, the one thing that I found out about him is his use of actually, and Joel, you could probably attest to this, and even you, Christian, where he would fit in drum fills in some really weird places in songs. Like he would just it almost like it didn't fit.
Yeah. No, and that is, yeah, and that's correct. I mean, the two things that when I think of Keith Moon, well, other than the fact that he was just a wild man when he played, was that his feel was so loose, and he would put random fills in. The other thing is that when they first started playing, and Pete Townsend was experimenting with keyboards and all of this other stuff, he was one of the first guys that he wasn't the first, but he was one of the first guys that would actually wear headphones so he could hear the keyboard to lock in with the songs, because now they have clicks or they have the track in the ear with the beat going along. Back in the day, they didn't have that. So that technology, I mean, we now we're able to put up a computer, have all this stuff, and it's just very dependable. And I play at my church every weekend. It's the same. Our pastor puts it together. It's the same every Sunday. We know it's going to be dependable. I used to fill in at churches in Dallas and Denton and everything. But back in the day, like the keyboards would be a little bit faster, a little bit slower. The time signatures would fluctuate. You didn't know what was going to be the same, venue to venue. So that's a testament to him being able to do that back in the day. I mean, that's huge. I mean, I think that's I think that's one to kind of definitely look at.
All right. So, going down the list, you both had this next guy on your list. Of course, John Bonham, Led Zeppelin. Like Christian said at one point, he's basically the top of a lot of people's lists. He's, from what I've read and listened to, he's really kind of been the what word am I looking for? Inspiration for a lot of the modern drummers that are out there.
Yeah, I would say, like, as far as rock drummers are concerned, he's like the standard bearer. Like,
he is. I mean, you got names like Dave Grohl, Dave Lombardo, Chad Smith, guys like that look to him as their influence. And so, I mean, when
Smith's another person.
You're when you're influencing people like Dave Grohl, Dave Lombardo, it's like, okay, yeah, you're up there. And so another drummer that I've got to put him in here from doing my research. Now, I know we're thinking about name recognition. I know we're thinking about people well known. A lot of people might not know this person. From the research that I did, it said it's easier to talk about the people that he didn't play with rather than the people that he did play with, because at one time he was the most sought after drummer in the industry. That was Bernard Purdie. and Bernard
Oh,
Purdy is famous. He's also as Mississippi Bigfoot. Came up with the Purdy Shuffle. That's
yeah,
another thing. Go look up the Purdy Shuffle.
yeah,
It's
yeah.
insane at what this guy does. And so I think when you're reading about these drummers, because again, I don't know them like you guys do. So when I'm doing this research and I see things like he was at one time the most sought after drummer in the industry, you got to think about this, right? And
Well,
so
I'll
I
be
mean,
honest. I'm not familiar at all with him, so
Yeah, I mean,
I
I'm
can't speak
familiar
to.
with name recognition, and when you talked about the shuffle, like I've heard that. Could I name a specific track? Or I mean, no, but I do recognize the name. That's a good one. Again,
so
pulling it out.
So he really a name that y'all might understand with him. He played with Jeff Beck.
Okay.
Yeah,
Steely Dan brought him in, and apparently, from my research, Steely Dan was very picky with who they had come play with them. So
Yeah.
to have him come in with them was big for him. He was very precise with his timing, and he is really known for the use of his triplets. The triplets was kind of his thing. And so, yeah, I mean, but you're looking at styles like swing, blues. So Bernard Purdy, for those of you like me who hadn't heard of the guy and went and I watched several videos, the guy can drum. It's insane. Mississippi Bigfoot. That's his nickname. Look him up. I mean, look him up. The Purdy Shuffle. That's all I got. Shuffle. So I think he, again, not as well known as some of these other guys, but definitely worth a shout at. The next guy I've got on here, you both talked about him, Neil. Peart?
it's weird. Yeah.
Of Rush. I mean, y'all have really said everything you need to say about Neil and where he stands. I think he's definitely up there. The one drummer that I've got on the list, this is my last whale that neither of you mentioned, and I haven't heard him come up in conversation at all up until right now, is Ginger Cream.
Oh, yeah, Ginger Baker.
And so
I mean,
you've got
he's
I found a quote, and the quote comes straight from Neil, the drummer that I just named, with saying that Baker kind of set the bar for what rock drumming could be. So if you've got a drummer like Neil Peart or Peart, however you say it, you got a drummer like that saying that you're setting the bar of what rock drumming could be, you're definitely, that's an A-lister looking up and saying something about a potential another A-lister, and so I mean,
I would put Ginger in the A-lister category. I mean, if you just go back and watch any of the footage of him playing in Cream with Eric Clapton, and I don't know the bass player's name, but
Ginger Baker. Anyway, Eric Clapton and
he's
Jack Bruce.
there you go. He's a pretty kick A drummer. Since
you've got guys, and I found guys that were saying things that you could describe as playing as extroverted, inventive, primal, and then some people called him the pioneer of heavy metal drumming.
Yeah.
Even though he didn't play heavy metal.
Yeah.
And from what I read, he didn't really even like heavy metal, but yet some people are saying he's the pioneer of it. And so you've got all these greats talking about him being, setting a bar. I definitely think Ginger Baker needs to come into this conversation for serious consideration with how versatile he is or was.
Well, I mean, as a player, one of the things that I wanted to do when I did my list is I wanted to have a great musician, someone who's name recognition. But the big thing for me also was, are they someone that's easy to get along with? And anyone who's ever seen the documentary about Ginger Baker, he was not, I mean, pulled guns on people and, I mean, fist fights. And, I mean,
Well, one of the first words that came to my mind when his name came up was asshole.
Yeah.
He's famous for being a grade A asshole.
And so for me, that would be, yes, I agree with his talent. Me personally, I'm going a different direction. And I'm not saying he's not a great guy. There's going to be a lot of people on this list that are like great musicians. You know, Buddy Rich is not even on this list, and he is a phenomenal drummer.
Yeah, go ahead.
Biggest jerk, just biggest. I mean, racist. I mean, there's a tape out there called the Buddy Rich tape that they pass around in North Texas, and it's basically him just chewing out his band. He's phenomenal. I'm sorry, I need a guy who's going to be a team player, you know, and that's why the three that I chose, and of course Neil wasn't on my list, but he could be on that list. Well, Neil can get along with people. He's not hanging out with people, if that makes any sense.
Well, he's not hanging out with fans.
Well, but I think even, you know, musicians, because there were musicians who wanted to meet him, and he was like, I'm good. You know, There's a story about the bass. I think it's the bass player from Rage Against the Machine in that documentary. And he's like, you know, he wanted to go up there, and they were like, let's go see Geddy. So so that's a criteria. I mean, but that's a great list. That's a great list.
That rounds out my list. And what I was going to say is, I mean, kind of wrapping this up to nail this drummer down. I mean, yes, I had 20 something drummers on my list, or almost 20. So you can't really say that, you know, that we all three had this person on the list just because
your list was so extensive. Yeah.
But I mean, I think if we were to nail down 3 right now, I think, John Bonham definitely was on or near the top of all 3 of our lists, even though I said mine had no particular order. I mean, looking back on it, I mean, he is in the Wales and he's near the top. I think Neil, it was near the top of mine. Neil was, you know, on Christians. Joel, you said Neil was not on yours, but
he was not on mine.
But then again, Mike Portnoy was mentioned by all of us at some point.
Yeah, but he didn't make my list.
And so he
made Joel's list.
Really, I think if we want to get right down to it, if we just want to look at who made all of our list, it's John Bonham.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Because Dave Grohl was on yours, but Dave Grohl was kind of, I don't want to say in the honorable mention section, but, you know, he wasn't one of the whales that was on my list. And so, I mean, but John, for me, it seemed like John Bonham is really kind of where it's at.
Yeah. Well, I mean, just real quick, before we kind of nail it down, I wanted to give kind of like honorable mention. Like, they didn't make anybody's list, but just some guys that I thought of while we were talking. Mitch Mitchell. You know, drummer from Jimi Hendrix. Roger Taylor, drummer from Queen.
Mm-hmm.
Carter Buford from Dave Matthews. And then hard hitters. And then, you know, people say Ginger Baker was probably the pioneer of heavy metal drumming. I would actually say Bill Ward was the pioneer of heavy metal drumming, the drummer from Black Sabbath.
Yeah.
So I know I probably took some drummers away from the comment section just now, but I wanted to throw those guys out there. Yeah. I'm good with Bonham. I mean, how can you not be? He is, like I said, he's the standard bearer for pretty much everybody on the list that you named off, Ryan. Like, with the exception of maybe guys who came out around his era, you know, everybody that followed Bonham, including his son, Jason, who is a top-notch drummer in his own right.
Yeah.
I think everybody points to it's Bonham.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I'm cool with that. I'm cool with Bonham
I'm
for sure.
So
because
John Bonham.
yeah, John Bonham.
All right.
All right.
And so if you didn't hear a drummer that you think should have at least been mentioned, put him down in the comments and let us see, because I'm undoubtedly we left somebody off that you feel should have had a mention or should be the pick. We want to hear that. We want to know what y'all are thinking. And, also don't just, I'll throw this out there. Don't just put their name in the comments.
Tell us the band.
Put their name and then give us a little description of why you think that this drummer should be considered to be the pick.
Yeah.
Or to have, a mention. And
and I know that we kind of all three of us kind of used name recognition as a criteria for being in the supergroup, but I'm the type of guy, like, maybe throw a drummer out there that maybe the whole world hasn't heard of yet, right? Like that way, we can check them out, because I'm always curious to hear guys play that I've never heard play before.
Yeah. I think it's great, and that's the only way to discover it. and I know that after we're done, Fisher and I are both going to be digging that. And I know that as well versed as I try to be in music, I'm always exposed to new things. So if it's a young person that's out there killing it, yeah, let us know, because we'd love to hear that. So this has been a good one. I'm actually surprised that we actually came to an agreement so quickly. So
yeah,
and I'm looking forward to building the group more.
we have a good foundation started.
Yeah, I mean, John Bonham. I mean, let's go.
Well, and the other half of that foundation will be next week with the bass player.
Yeah.
Right.
And so now that we got our drummer nailed down, I believe Christian is going to hit us up this week with our first listen. I'm looking to it. Hopefully, we're not listening to something about needing to use the restroom this week.
Check out our previous episode on that. It was great.
So yeah, let's get this first listen rolling.
Yeah. So anybody who knows me knows that I am a huge Radiohead fan. If they're not my favorite band, they're damn near close to it. And so I figured our first listen would come from, if not Radiohead, from Tom York, the lead singer. And he was on The Tonight Show back in April, and he debuted a song, and I'm not sure, maybe somebody in the comments can let us know. I don't know if this is going to be on a solo record or if he wrote this for Radiohead, but he debuted a song named Plasticine Figures on The Tonight Show back in April, and that's what we're going to listen to tonight.
Here we go.
I don't know about you guys, but that introduction of just the piano, I think is, we kind of talked about last week, perfect songs to kind of just turn the lights off and just get lost, or maybe have like the dimmed Christmas lights on the wall or whatnot. This song obviously fits that bill. Mm-hmm. I don't know. I'm drawn to music like this, if you want to call it moody or whatnot. But just those opening lyrics are kind of reminiscent of at least to me, Fake Plastic Trees. So I don't know. What do you guys think so far?
I mean,
It's a Tom York song. It's a Tom
yeah. I
York
mean,
song.
it's Radiohead. I have the privilege that I get to watch the video as well, and it's always amazing to see. You
His
know,
lazy eye.
well, I wasn't going to go there, but like just the intimacy that he presents when
Yeah.
singing. I've actually been able to see them more than once, and whether it's 1,000 people or whether it's 2 people in a room, I feel like you just feel like you're enveloped in
Yeah.
the music, and yeah, it's. I mean, I just love. I've never heard this song, so this is cool because I've never heard it. So
Yeah, I'm at the point to where I want to see where it goes. I want to hear more. I don't really have an opinion on whether or not I like it up to this point or not.
Okay.
Really, I guess what I'll say is my musical history is singing in choir. And so before the vocal came in and it was just the piano, that my first thought was, okay, we're about to have, some Beethoven or Mozart happening here, and it's gonna, we're gonna have a choir come in. But
Yeah.
that's at least what I would have thought if you hadn't have said Radiohead before we hit play. But
Okay.
I'm kind of curious as to where it's gonna go. I like the piano so far, but yeah, I'm wanting to hear more.
it's always interesting to me how these guys take 2 distinct sections and just meld them together. And that's one
Yeah.
of the things I will say. There's a video out there somewhere where they talk about Radiohead doing that, and it's just, I mean, Tom York is great. The Radiohead as a group they're kind of like the Beatles. They're great together. They're great individually. They have tons of solo stuff too, and Johnny Greenwood has score music that he does and whatnot. But that's pretty crazy.
So
I'm not gonna lie.
so for me, at this point, I've for me it's very monotone, and I'm speaking vocally. I think I like the piano part. The vocals for me, they're not going anywhere, and it's
Yeah.
kind of flat and stagnant. And so I'm kind of just like, okay, I'm waiting for it to go somewhere, and it's not going for me.
Well, let's see if it goes somewhere. We have roughly
believe that's the end.
That is the end. Man,
Yeah.
that is. What's funny is I was thinking at the end, listening to his vocals, it kind of reminds me of like that kind of old big band thing, just the way his vocal line is.
Yeah.
And
Well,
I wish I could think of an example, but
Right.
just that kind of moody big band,
Yeah.
kind of like The Mask, the music in The Mask, because his vocal line kind of does that kind of Mac the Knife kind of, the more groovier kind of thing, or Count Basie or thing. But yet he's got these crazy chords. It's just, I mean,
Yeah.
it's just so funny when I hear stuff like that. I just magically hear all the other things that the band would
Right.
be doing, and it's
Well,
just him by
and
himself.
when earlier when I said it, for me, it's reminiscent of Fake Plastic Trees. I wasn't talking musically but lyrically. Like,
Oh, yeah.
it's along those same lines. I agree with Ryan about the vocals are just kind of stagnant. They don't really add a whole lot to the song. But like, he had just finished writing that song, like, I don't know, maybe a couple days before he debuted it on the show. So if it is a Radiohead song, I'm with Joel. I'm very curious to see what the band brings to it,
Yeah.
as far as adding things on.
Yeah. There's a great video that discusses the progression of songs, and what they did is they took live Radiohead songs that were done before they were recorded. And I think Burn the Witch is one of them, not in that video, but Burn the Witch is an old song that by the time it came out was totally different. I love that track. But it's amazing to watch the progression of how they take a song, and like Pablo Honey is a very direct alternative record, but then they take that shift with their next album, The Bends, and then OK Computer is just the first. It just seems like they keep taking these further extensions, and even though it's accessible, they keep expanding their sound.
Yeah.
So I think it'll be really neat to kind of see what happens. And just so you know, Ryan, because you can't see the video, like, he's in a dark, like, library in his house, and that probably lends a little bit to the
moodiness.
The moodiness, and the, because it's also kind of visual as well, which is a big thing for radio. If you follow them at all, I mean, that's their thing, is it's not just a visual, it's everything encompassing. So.
Okay. So, the song, for me, it's one of those where the vocal line isn't necessarily the star of the song. You've got, certain songs where the chord progression and the lyrics kind of are the magic to the song. And I feel that's what that was, is that was more of a lyrical chord progression piece where the vocals take the back seat. In addition, or in comparison, I should say, to where there are certain songs that lyrically are absolutely terrible. The lyrics are awful, but the vocal lines are insane amazing. And so for me, that's the way I'm going to look at it. I mean, I liked the chord progression on the piano. The lyrics were great. The vocal line for me kind of, just like I said earlier, took the back seat. It's not something that I would go seek out to listen to again. But it's also a song that if I wouldn't skip it.
Yeah. It's very reminiscent of, like, something you might hear. I'm going to bring it way back. Something you might hear when we're in the Liquid Lounge waiting for Not Called Common to come on stage. Right?
Sure.
So for those of you who know what we're talking about right there, deep cut, right? But, guys, if you've heard the song and you like it, or tell us what you think in the comments below.
Yeah.
Yeah,
definitely.
I would. I'm curious to get your thoughts and opinions about said plasticine figures.
Yeah, I got to say, like I said, I listened to a lot of music. That was a great first listen for me. And I knew it was coming up, but I purposely didn't listen. So I don't know about you. I totally love it. I love Radiohead. But like Fisher said, if you have any questions, we'd love to hear from you. If you have anything to add to any of the episodes, or if you just want to, hey, check out this, or with the super fight that is coming back here in the future, in the next few episodes, if you want to add anything to the super fight, or if you think we're crazy thinking that no one can beat the Beatles, we'd love to hear from you. Subscribe to our channel. Let us know what you're doing. And before I hand it off to Fisher, Fisher normally does the thing where he tells you about different YouTube channels that he follows. And I kind of cut him off and I interrupted him on one. And I typically don't watch a lot of YouTube videos other than like live concerts. But I recently ran across this girl. Her name is Julia Plays Grooves. She's this phenomenal bass player. I love the fact that she has a bass that's almost like mine as well, which is cool. But, for me, I have a 14-year-old daughter. Finding positive, awesome women to kind of like, hey, check this person out, see what she's doing, whether it's literature or art or music or whatever. This girl is fantastic. She takes songs that are out there right now. The one that I saw was Lizzo. She took a Mac Miller tune. She takes all these tunes and she basically just solos. And she'll do some groove stuff, but she is phenomenal. And every time I listen to her, I'm just totally inspired. So if you get a chance, go check her out. She's pretty rad. So Fisher, who do you have this week that you want to listen to?
This week I just have one. And it is my this old metalhead here, Banger TV. It's the name of the channel.
Be careful typing it in, kids.
It is. Stop it! Get your mind out of the gutter.
Do not type that into your URL.
All right, jackass. Banger TV. It's run by a guy named Sam Dunn. He is we've referenced one of his documentaries a lot tonight, the Beyond the Lighted Stage. He's the guy behind that documentary. He's also the guy behind his first documentary, which debuted on VH1 way back in the day, Metal: A Headbanger's Journey. And he's also the Metal Evolution.
Really?
He's that guy. So
that is a great series, man.
Yeah, that's the famous family tree of metal, and where you get all the different genres. That's this guy. That's his YouTube channel, Banger TV. They do a lot of album reviews. So if you I say I'm a metalhead, but I'm a very specific genre metalhead. I like thrash and anything kind of, or Joel and Ryan will laugh, but I like stoner metal. I like groove metal, which is like Pantera. But anything outside of those kind of genres, I'm not a death metal guy. But Banger TV will cover any and all heavy metal. If you can find them, they've probably talked about them at one point or another. But they do some really good work on that channel, and I just wanted to give them a shout out.
That's great. And that Metal Evolution is one of the best documentary series that I've ever seen, as far as they cover like you said, they cover everything.
Right.
Good stuff.
That's my shout out of the week. So don't forget to hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, give us more cowbell, hit those notifications. What you got for us, Ryan?
All right. So good episode today. I mean, John Bonham, right? We started off heavy hitting. We got a drummer with our super group. First, fantastic. Right there. Applause. Golf clap.
Yeah.
Round of applause.
But next week, if you liked what you saw, next week we're going to be continuing our supergroup discussion. We're going to be hitting up a bass player to go along with John Bonham.
I'll do the other ends.
let's see if we can get a rhythm section nailed out here next week. We're also going to see if we can get another first listen in, and we're going to try to throw something new at you guys. We're going to go into possibly looking at some movie soundtrack topics, and we'll see what we can fit in for you guys. Not getting real specific on that right now, but it's definitely movie soundtracks are coming down the pike, and so just be ready. Again, thank you for watching, and we will see all of you out there again. Keep listening to music. See y'all next week. Peace.
Later.
Jamming on the one.
I like that. I like that.
That's my version of Supergroup drummer take 2. It's jamming on the one. Fun.
There you
Okay,
go.
there we go.
There it is. Woo!
So repeat what you just
There's
said.
no rules. You know?